Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
Hi, I'm Jesi.
I'm Trevor.
I'm Tori.
And I'm Josh. And today we are going to be going over a poem/song that Leonard Cohen wrote and sang. But funny enough, Ari is not on the panel. For reasons you will find out about later in the episode. But the work we're going over is Who by Fire by Leonard Cohen. And Trevor, you have a discussion starter?
Well, several questions that came to mind, in fact, going through this one. One of the ones that came to mind was, it concerns dichotomies, because some of the lyrics themselves are dichotomous, like who by fire, who by water, who by the sunlight, who by the evening. And it just made me wonder, how did dichotomies enter into Cohen's life, and how do they enter into our lives? And
that's not the direction that I went with.
As in the Bible, the book in the Bible?
Not just the Bible,
highly
but almost anything. Even the Buddhist text known as the Dhammapada dealt with dichotomies, at least in its first chapter of the Dhammapada. And then there's the other question that sprung to mind. The question repeats 3 times throughout the poem, who shall I say is calling? Who is this mysterious caller calling?
I think that's the potential the Messiah.
Yeah. Isn't this based off of I'm going to butcher this and I apologize, but it's supposed to be like when a person's time is
Judgment
Day. The book of
and to me,
Revelation. Book of Revelations is open and
that's a New Testament piece, and Leonard Cohen is very Jewish.
And then that's not what I'm thinking of.
I think
I'm not referencing.
It's their interpretation of Judgment Day.
But it's supposed to be the referencing of all the different ways that an individual may and can die.
Yeah.
And that's their end, and so who by fire, who by water, the
fire versus water, day versus night, superior versus common man. The dichotomies are just imagery,
I think, drawn upon for a literary standpoint.
Versus individual, free versus servitude.
To me,
all-encompassing that it doesn't matter how you die, we all are going to reach that end at some point.
To me, I got a great deal of, to me it felt very much like a faith-based, cleaner version of Howl by Allen Ginsberg, where he names all of these groups of people, referring to the woman in the woman in her lonely slip, and the barbiturate. There's
it's a deeply religious song. That's what I thought it was.
Yeah.
At any rate, so that's what I got.
But the woman in her lonely slip is somebody in a lingerie against someone that's drug induced. But that was where it threw me, because to me before that it seemed like it was 2 opposites being presented next to one another.
That's how I originally took it as well. I tried to. This was one of those things where I read it a few times just because at first I tried to take it for face value and I just got confused. I found that listening to it made much more of a difference.
I listened to it first of all to get just that emotional quality.
Exactly. Like if you just try to read it, it doesn't. I feel like it doesn't really do the poem or song, whatever you want to call it, any sort of justice. You have to listen to it. You have to hear like you said, the emotion kind of behind it, and I feel like that kind of gives you a little bit more insight as to what's going on.
I read it and then listened to it, but I think you have a good point where I personally, in my own experiences, any works or songs that were inspired by works, when I read the work first, the song is very wooden and ploddy, as in plod in the mud.
Yeah,
like I know that was the example. For instance, the Paul Simon's song about Richard Cory was very plotty, and even "For Whom the Bell Tolls" by Metallica. Once you when you're reading the lyrics and then listening to the song, it feels like you're plodding through that too. So, but I think that the song gave you a bit more of an atmosphere to it, even though Leonard Cohen sounds like a drone in anything he sings.
I think though, like this again, I listened to this first before I actually read the lyrics and did any other sort of like delving into the history and like the information behind it. It gives off this very feel of like a religious sound.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the first thing that you hear, because the fiddles or the violins in the background feel very not klezmer, but there's like there's a tradition with the Jewish violinists, I think, where they kind of like improvise and stuff like that, and that sensation of a heavy, thought-provoking, like, again, who by fire, who by water. So it gives you that chance of thinking about mortality and morality and all these different questions of, how will you reach your end? But it doesn't matter how you reach that end, because that end will always come and find you eventually. So it's very somber. So that monotonous drone-like voice and the harmonies in the background with all of the female and male singers, like that chorus in the background, kind of gives it that liturgical, is that a word? Am I using that right? Like
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sensation to it, that you're kind of almost standing in a place of worship, and this is the call and response of the whole entire congregation.
But is there anything else anybody want to say? Trevor?
Thinking about all the dichotomies matching with the end times just does kind of put a great deal of questions into mind to search out the answers. And
That's
I guess
the point of the song, is to ask those questions, and maybe we might not necessarily be able to answer them, but
and it's a question, and it's that question of who, what do you need to be, or who do you need to be in order to make it to the other side?
Answer that
and have a positive afterlife. And that, to me, that who is the Messiah and the person that they've been waiting for.
Yeah, Leonard Cohen from that point of view. Yeah, but because it is so kind of open and symbolic in the way that it's written, it can be whatever deity or higher power or semblance that you want to.
I try to see it from
a little
Leonard
bit of
Cohen's
the opposite from the who is calling, and I'm just to kind of throw it out there as how I interpreted it.
Yeah.
When I read it through and listened and everything, to me it kind of sounded like it was, I guess like the deity is the best way to say it, that's saying all of this, and who is calling is the person who's dying by fire and who's dying by water.
So it's a reverse. You're saying it's from their point of view instead of from the person. Interesting.
Yes,
because another dichotomy.
Ooh, I like that.
Deity versus mortal.
And that's how I kind of saw it. It was just like, it doesn't, like, I don't see you as anything more than the soul that you come up being. It doesn't matter how
I just
you
got
die
chills.
you're
That's
welcome.
a beautiful way of looking at it. I never thought about
that's
it
how
that way.
I actually interpreted it. Just like slightly different, like overall the same, but slightly different that way, because, I mean, in the end, we all go to the same place, wherever that is. Or whatever your faith. Call it what you like, but we all end up meeting our maker at some point, and and that's how they see us. They see us as the soul coming home.
Interesting.
So who is calling? Tori is calling.
The literary gladiators are calling. Yes, who shall I say is calling?
Oh my goodness.
Tell him I'm not available right now. Not here right now.
Hello?
Hello.
Who is calling?
It's probably
No,
Ari.
this is not Sam's
Ari's known for
delicatessen.
making a lot of calls.
Thank
this
you.
is-
Goodbye.
We're respectful. We
Yes,
promise.
very good.
And may we be struck down if we're not. Or at least may I be struck down anyway.
It's
Spare
interesting
these
though
three,
how
but
Leonard Cohen,
What's your way?
even though he's faith based, is able to make this he's able to make it so that it can apply to anybody, and he does such a great job keeping it lyrical. The one thing that really stuck out is the who in your merry merry month of May. That to me it wouldn't be. That's his contribution, because I'm pretty sure that wouldn't be a biblical
No, it's
induction.
Fun little play.
But to compare that with the very slow decay, it's very to me it very much.
Well, May is spring. It's vernal.
Yeah.
So you know, again,
From
the dichotomy
yeah.
of living and dying.
Yeah,
So,
the
like quite literally.
May is spring is a season of birth. Winter is seen as death, even though fall is decay as it is. So.
If you don't mind me speaking behind the camera, but May is also the month of Pentecost.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In Hebrew we call it Shavuot. It's the same basic thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was like 49 days, and then the 50th day is
Okay.
Pentecost.
It's quite he has that to bring to the table as well, but at the same time, there are so many different, and I think that's what religion in general. A lot of them have so many similar destinations, but yet the way that you get at them and the way that they perceive whatever that destination is different. So.
Religion comes from humanity.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
One begets the other.
Mm-hmm. Already then, do we have any final thoughts?
It's a haunting song, and I mean that way in the best sense possible. It kind of
Leonard Cohen's songs and poems are very haunting and hollow. Hollow as in not in a hollow as in a nothing way, but hollow as in a dark kind of way.
Yeah, it's very atmospheric in the sound because of the harmonies that are kind of imposed in there from his drone, and then you have the background singers kind of carrying most of the tune.
They
as
play
those
Everybody
instruments.
Knows every so often at work, and that one is pretty. It seems like people feel that he's going off for about an hour. But
This is the other random thing. I'm not gonna lie, and this is the weirdest thought that like the connection between the two, but it makes sense. Like if you think about it, for some reason, the first couple of chords of the song was like, oh, this kind of sounds like classic David Bowie. Yeah.
if you're interested in checking out this and several of other Leonard Cohen's other poems and songs, here is the Everyman's Library Pocket Poets edition of Leonard Cohen's works. And I thought I would show you something that my dad's cousin and his wife got me
I
for
saw that.
Christmas.
I was like, so pretty.
Say,
Nice.
it's
Look
a
at that. I was like,
little notebook that has literary gladiators imprinted on it.
I want one. I know.
And
So nice.
I will have to let them know, even though I'll have to, perhaps it would be an interesting gift for any particular occasion. And Jesi, this is your first time at Ari's house as
Yes,
well.
and it's a beautiful home, Ari, I have to say. It's
thank you.
lovely.
Thank
Already-
you for hosting
Nice.
And
Floors, my
He's
socks
behind the
slide on it.
before we go, Ari wanted to make his own contribution to this discussion and give us his take on this. According to Ari, it is the take on this.
Take it away.
Action! So the actual inspiration from Leonard Cohen, "Who by Fire," comes from a prayer that we say that on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which is the New Year and the Day of Atonement in Judaism. So the Hebrew, the basic line for Hebrew is "Berosh Hashanah yichatevun uv'yom Yom Kippur yichatemun," which basically means on Rosh Hashanah it is written, and on Yom Kippur it is sealed. And what that's basically saying is that you have a chance to redeem yourself for all these, not necessarily sins, but all the things you've done wrong over the last year. And if God forgives you, you're sealed in the book of life, and you get to live for
That's
another
what I was
year.
trying to reference. Sorry. Thank you.
And then if you're not, then like obviously there are going to be some people who pass away. And here is the actual line here: "How many will pass on, and how many will be born? Who will live, and who will die? Who will live a long life and who will come to an untimely end? Who will perish by fire and who by water? Who by sword and by beast? Who by hunger and who by thirst? Who by earthquake and who by plague? It actually goes on a little bit longer than that, but that's the basic prayer, and that's where Leonard Cohen actually got his inspiration for this song. This is a book called a Machzor that we only use on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Yeah, I'm holding it backwards because Hebrew is read the other way. And this again is called Unatana Tokef is the name of the prayer. And it basically means like let us the sacred power of the day is the basic translation of that. And so it explains.
So interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of that.
That's what I was trying to get at, and I couldn't remember life. I couldn't remember the word life. Ari was probably dancing around there like, you're so close behind the camera.
Tori knew half of it.
I was like,
No, I was actually very pleased with how close you got. So I wasn't gonna say. I didn't say anything. You were so close that I didn't.
Tori's half Jewish.
I am. I'm half Jewish, second generation cashew. So I'm only half crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
half Jewish, half nuts.
the Book of Life
I don't
though
think
is
you want
not.
to say that. You know,
The Book of Life is not necessarily.
Oh God,
Yeah.
no, never mind.
The Book of Life isn't necessarily like a book of like. It's not like a book where you like with stuff in it already. It's like a hypothetical book that you get sealed in because once you're forgiven for your sins.
Interesting. Okay.
And then once Yom Kippur passes, the whole new year starts over again, and then you get to do it again. And that's why Yom Kippur is actually my favorite holiday of the year, because it's such an important holiday to make sure that you work on what you've made mistakes on.
Rejuvenating.
Cleans the slate in a way.
Ooh, I like that.
Alrighty then.
I'm not gonna itch.
Be sure to
Not
join
halfway
us
across
next.
the room. Sorry.
Be sure to join us next time for another episode of Literary Gladiators. For now, keep reading.
Keep reading.
Bye.